Welcome back to the pod, episode 47. Just thought I'd do a quick update during the week. I think we've got Chris on tomorrow morning. We tried this morning, but I got called away, unfortunately. Had to rush off to a meeting. But I was chatting to a friend of mine the other day, and he was just talking about there's so much information going around today on podcasts, YouTube, Twitter, social media in general. And a lot of it is great information, but I think some of the information out there for the average person or even, good athletes is becoming over complex. And even including for myself, I've been training for a very, very long time now. And, I get sucked into this vortex every now and then of, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. What about this? What about that? And then even with some of the more high level, intelligent people that I follow, every now and then they come out with things that kind of frustrate me a little bit. And particularly I go back to things that I'm across in quite detail, e.g. sprinting and track running for a very long period in coaching. And then when I hear some highly intelligent people offering up sprint advice on about going out and running flat out for 60 meters or 100 meters, and I spoke about somebody I saw on some sports scientist / coach on YouTube the other week testing some guy over 8 200s. I mean, seriously, I understand that we all want to grow our audience and put more information out there, but I think most of the time we need to, at least stick in our lane to a certain degree. I try not to get into the science about things because I don't fully understand the science. So I try and stick with some of the basics. And what I've come to realize, I've gone full circle. And I also, as I've got older, I like to look at the things that I used to think were absolute truth and things I've changed my mind on. And for those of you that don't know, sprinted for a very long time. And as I've got a little bit older, I've moved back into more distance running for me, not that far. 10Ks or a little bit over 10Ks are my sort of furthest runs at the moment, but trying to build that up slowly. But anyway, one of my friends, he's similar age to me, or we're same age, and he asked me about his recovery. And he'd been listening to a particular podcast, and they spoke about what supplements to take and hydration and what we should be doing. And obviously, saunas have become popular, ice baths have become popular. And I agree with all these things. I mean, I would have an ice bath and a sauna in my backyard if I had the space. I have a sauna in the building, which I haven't used for a little while, but I absolutely love it. And I've been taking cold showers and swimming in the ocean in the middle of winter for forever, 30 years. But for most people, unless you're at a really high level and you're trying to increase your performance by 1% at a time, then I think we need to go back to basics. And my buddy was asking me about, he's finding his recovery and he's struggling with recovery. And I agree. I'm the same. At my age now, running a little bit further in distance and training quite hard, I don't know, maybe somewhere between 6 and 10 hours a week, some weeks up to 12 hours, some days I'm doing double sessions. It's a lot. I've got a full-time job. I work a lot of hours. And I find that my legs, with the amount of running I'm doing at the moment, they're just heavy and I'm not recovering anywhere near as well as I used to. Well, a lot of that has got to do with my age, full stop. And I'm not going to actually change a lot of that now. I used to never bounced out of bed even when I was younger after hard training days. But, once I got moving around, I would get going and I'd be fine. And my advice to him was, he asked me about what supplements, he should take and other things. And I'm sure that he does cramp a lot. But I said to him, some of the cramps is possibly coming from, just that you are stiff as a particular person. Your body type is very wound up. You're not a heavily mobile person. So you've got this, ability to stay quite stiff and tight all the time. So when he goes into particular positions, he was saying at these recovery classes he cramps quite a lot. And my suggestion was go back to the basics without worrying about any supplementation and doing any of these, new and fancy protocols at the moment that we're seeing all over the internet, ice baths, infrared saunas and so forth. Get lots of sleep, eat a balanced diet, and drink plenty of water. Sleep, eat well, and hydrate. And I think if majority of people focused on that, you would find that you are probably 90 to 95% of the way there. You probably don't have to do much else. If you want to tweak little things, if you want to take some supplements, because you want to just see what they do, then go for it. I've taken a lot of supplements in my life over the years when I was very young in particular. And we used to take supplements all the time. I was always at the health food shop and walk out with, bee pollen back then and vitamin D. I still take vitamin D. I think it's one of the supplements that just in today's world, lack of sunshine, indoors a lot. I live in a sunny country, but long sleeve shirt on all the time, covered up, don't get outdoors a lot. I think vitamin D is a must. I've taken 3 supplements for a very long time now. I've just gone back to using a little bit of magnesium to see if it will help with my recovery. Now, because I don't do any testing per se and really monitor this and write down how I feel every day and the dosage and make sure, it's the same time, blah, 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 blah. Do I really know it's working? I just don't, from my point of view. But I take protein powder, whey isolate protein powder, because I realized when I measured out my protein from my food that I was eating each day, I was getting nowhere near enough grams of protein per day for my body weight. I run pretty lean as a person. I can lose weight very quickly. The moment I started running, I just dropped weight. So I find protein for me, it's a must. I've taken creatine forever. I have gone on and off. Back when I was younger, it was always about loading 20 grams per day, for 5 or 6 days. Now that I'm taking creatine all the time, can I honestly say I notice any difference? No. Should I load with it? Possibly. Does it retain water for me? When I was younger and I was a little bit bigger, 5, 6 kilos heavier, I probably could notice every now and then if I loaded with creatine, I might actually look a little bit heavier, a little bit more full. Was that water retention? Had I eaten differently that week? I don't know. Can I notice any different with creatine now? No. So I take vitamin D, protein powder, and creatine. I've just added a bit of magnesium into the mix, trying to see if that will assist with sleep. I've read some positive things about it. Does it help? Right now, I can't honestly say. What I do know is that I'm prioritizing my sleep. I'm trying to go to bed much earlier. Go to bed, probably an hour earlier than I used to, read a book, wind down, try and get up a little bit earlier, and so forth. I understand there's some data around at the moment, talking about if you get up in the morning and get sunshine in your eyes. I'm sure it works, and I'm not disputing any of these particular so-called or not so-called professionals out there that have got a lot more information, a lot more knowledge than I am, and they are scientists, and I'm sure they're right. If you've got 4 hours sleep one night and you get up and get 15 minutes of sunshine in your eyes first thing in the morning, is that going to really negate the 4 hours sleep or the 4 beers you had the night before or the 3 pizzas you had? No. And if you were eating really well and didn't get any sunshine in your eyes first thing in the morning, is that going to really make a huge difference? I don't believe so. So I think it's back to the basics. Do the big things first. Get your sleep under control. Make sure you're, rehydrated during the day. And that doesn't mean having some big, 2-liter or 2 gallons of water first thing in the morning. It just means that your body should never get to the point where you feel thirsty. I know there's a lot of information out there as well around having too much water. You're flushing your system. You're flushing it out of electrolytes and so forth. If you feel like you need to add some electrolytes to your water intake, so be it. I've read before where just adding a pinch of salt to your water will help the water absorb. Again, unless you're going into a lab and really, digging down with these things and monitoring really closely, how do we really know? I mean, I normally know when I haven't drank enough water. Today, not enough water. I've been moving around all day, been in and out of meetings. I went to a lunch. It was probably a little bit too much salt in the lunch, Japanese. And already by this time in the afternoon, it's early evening in Sydney, I feel quite dehydrated. So I'll spend the next hour before going to bed, or next few hours before I go to bed, just slowly bringing up my water intake. I definitely don't try and have too much water before I go to bed, particularly the last minute. The last thing I want to do is be getting up to pee in the middle of the night. So, but I do need to bring up my, fluid intake for the next sort of hour or so, and then I have a couple of hours before I go to bed. So, yeah, it was just interesting to hear him. I understand that there's a lot of good, intelligent people out there. I love that we have access to information so easily and freely today. However, it can become a little bit overwhelming. And I think from a recovery point of view, what I'm trying to focus on at the moment, getting more sleep. I'm really making my sleep a priority. I go back, I always can refer back to things that happened years ago. And one of my good friends says all the time, most of this stuff isn't new. We package it differently and we sell it again to the marketplace. It's been going around for years. One of my friends was a national Australian, he competed internationally as well when we were really young as a triple jumper. And he was fanatic about, trying to make the Olympics, and focusing on doing all the right things. He used to have, I think, 8 to 10 hours sleep per night during the week. And he said on the weekends, he would always get one night on the weekends where he'd get 12 to 14 hours sleep. I don't know how he was doing it personally, but that was his protocol because he knew he was putting his body under massive pressure and he had to prioritize his sleep. I think there's a massive movement at the moment moving away from alcohol, and I think it's a good thing. I've reduced my alcohol intake down substantially. Just had a month with no alcohol. I can't say that I didn't. I definitely felt better. I'm not going to say that I felt amazing and noticed this huge difference, but I probably didn't consume that much alcohol to really see the big difference. The one thing I will say is that the data on my Aura Ring knows that I've had a drink, particularly now that I've cut my alcohol back so much. If I do have a couple of drinks, on a Saturday night, often my body temperature will be slightly raised and my resting heart rate overnight will sit somewhere between 5 and 10 beats higher, depending on how close to going to bed I've consumed that alcohol. If it's only an hour before I've gone to bed, that last drink, it'll stay very high. If it's been a few hours, I clearly metabolize that more if I had more water. But if it's quite close to going to bed, my heart rate will, on my Oura Ring, will show that it's affecting my sleep. I heard somebody say the other day, it might have been Peter Retier, who I listen to quite a lot, that maybe because we have access to all this data now, that it has encouraged people to stop drinking as much because you can physically see the impact on your body now. Where once upon a time, you get up and don't feel great, but you don't have this, screen in front of you saying, "Oh, your heart rate's 10 beats up last night. What was wrong?" And that the only variable you had yesterday was the alcohol. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. I think it's, the information out there. I'm a bit of an information junkie. I read lots. I listen to loads of podcasts. I'm always trying to look for improvement. But I've also realized that there's only so much all of us can do. A lot of it is just, white noise. And we just need to go back and focus on the basics. If you still like to jump in your cold plunge and have a sauna, by all means, go and do it. But there's plenty of people out there that are going to have a sauna and a cold plunge, but the rest of their main makeup of their day, their sleep, their eating, their diet, and their water intake is probably rubbish. And they're going to have a cold bath every day. So I just think it's a little bit silly. I spoke to John Wynn, top 10 Hyrox elite athlete, a little while ago. Incredible story. He was an alcoholic and he's reformed. He's been sober for 2.5 or 3 years, and he's now got himself in the top 10 athletes in the world in a sport that is growing rapidly and a lot of good athletes coming into it. He has no recovery protocol. And he admitted he needs to focus a little bit more on it, but he does no ice baths, saunas or anything. He takes some supplements. He's also got some sponsorship now, I believe, and he may take a bit of pre-workout. But, when I was younger, trained, and I don't think that I took any, used any recovery protocol. I do believe in recovery runs. I think, recovery workouts for me, I notice if I do spend some time after my training week, I'm trying to actually do a couple of days a week of interval running at the moment, trying to get my speed down. Sometimes if my legs are a little bit heavy, rather than do those intervals on the road, I'll jump on a bike and do those, a stationary bike and do those intervals. Side note, super excited about the new Zwift bike coming out. I think they've done a joint venture with a Wahoo kicker maybe, and they've designed and developed this really simple home trainer. I think I'm going to invest in one myself. I think they're only a couple of $1,000 Australian dollars, maybe 12 or 1,300 US, and it's quite small. The footprint's quite small. So I did enjoy using my I had a mountain bike or a road bike on a Garmin home trainer and used to use the Zwift app when I was in the US training for the Leadville 50 mountain bike race. And I found it entertaining, to be honest. You could race against other people, you could choose a particular program, and it really gave me a purpose. And I felt guilty some days if I hadn't been on the bike. And I look at the app and it's like, you need to do this particular session today. So I'm excited about that coming out to do that little bit of extra work. So I do get that recovery session in, but still get a few miles on my legs. The other thing that I'm doing for recovery work at the moment is just going on long walks, walking some hills and walking some stairs. I've got a really good staircase around where I live, and the other day I went for maybe a 1 or 2K walk first, and then I did 10 stair repeats walking. My heart rate got just above zone 2 at the top of the stairs, maybe popping into zone 3. By the time we got down to the bottom of the stairs again, it was back, in zone 1, walk up the stairs. And it was actually a good little workout. By the time I finished, I had quite sore calves, and I thought this is a really low impact workout that I need to include into my weekly routine to get a few miles on my legs and strengthen my legs without doing the heavy load stuff. And the other thing I've been toying with the idea is doing some rucking, or let's just call it weighted. Put a weight in a backpack and go for a walk. You don't need to buy the specific rucking backpack. But I think that's also another nice way to get a little bit of load on your body, find some hills, different grades, and without the stress and that eccentric stress that you get when you're running. The eccentric load being that every time you hit the ground with that foot, you're trying to break that impact. You're trying to stop your body collapsing and going forward underneath you. So you've got a lot of eccentric load, and that's where you start to get that muscle breakdown. And often, with the DONS, the delayed onset muscle soreness is coming from a few days later. So I think just going for a low impact walk with a bit of weight or walking some stairs is a good way to get extra miles and strengthen your legs without actually that impact. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on a few things. It was good having a conversation with a friend of mine. They called me up and asked me a few questions, and and he's a pretty good athlete himself. He's always ridden a bike his entire life, and he's a half reasonable runner. He's always remained fit. And with the information out there today, sometimes we just don't know what the right answer is. And I'm with him. I try different things all the time. But I think unless you've got the absolute basics under control, your eating, your hydration, and your sleep, then these other things really don't make a difference. So anyway, that's it from me. Hopefully back in the next few days with Chris in the pod. Going to create a bit of a new episode, I think, once a week if I can, or once a fortnight, I think, with Chris. We're going to do a bit of a coach's corner and just talk about some of the things around coaching and how we deal with particular athletes, what we do when people are struggling, and just bringing our experience together of, about probably 30 years of coaching now, and what we, how we review athletes, when we sort of stop them, when we push them, and how you deal with different situations. So yeah, looking forward to that. But apart from that, have a great week and bye for now.